I read 10 books to find a secret to happiness. Here's what I found. This video is sponsored by Short Form, but more on them later. After reading all these books, the one thing that I can say for sure is happiness is complex. Some authors say that happiness is all about being content. Some say happiness is all about overcoming challenges and growth, which leads me to the very first conclusion, which is that happiness looks different to different people, which I think further proves the point that happiness actually comes from the inside, it comes from within, and it should be unique to you. If there's one concept that we need to understand when it comes to happiness, is the happiness baseline. According to the book The How of Happiness by Sonia Lyubomirsky, after her extensive research in positive psychology, she found that a whopping 50% of our happiness is actually influenced by genetics. A happiness baseline is basically a default level of happiness that we normally feel, regardless whether life throws us with the ups or downs. Our level of happiness always comes back down to that baseline level. If you consistently feel upbeat during tough times, then you have a high happiness baseline. If you feel down even though things are going well, then you practically have a low happiness baseline. And Lyubomirsky said that our happiness baseline is defined by genetics. She cites a study where two identical twins with the same genetic codes being raised in completely different environments, but their happiness level often mirror each other. Meanwhile, the study of fraternal twins who have different genetic codes, although being raised in the exact same environment, found no correlation in their happiness level. And this sort of makes sense to me. I have spent time with a lot of people where I feel like their minds are framed differently, because regardless of what life throws at them, they always know how to perk themselves up. They always think and feel positive. At this point, you may think that 50% is a big number, and it is. In reality, this could be more or less, but regardless of the percentage, I think it is still important to recognize that genetics plays the part when it comes to our level of happiness and our happiness baseline. The next thing that influences the level of our happiness is our circumstances, and that accounts for around 10%. For example, you may feel very happy on the day of your wedding, and you will feel very sad when you lose someone. However, the big shifts or these variation in the level of happiness will be temporarily, and over time you naturally revert back to your happiness baseline, which is determined by your genetics. So getting a promotion, getting pay rise, getting married, or big events technically don't give us that feeling of long-term happiness, and I think it is really important to recognize that. The last factor that influences our level of happiness though, and this is something that I want to dive into in this video, which is your thoughts and your behaviors. We have established already that our happiness baseline is determined by genetics, and therefore that is something that we can't change. But our thoughts and behaviors can certainly improve the level of happiness that we feel on a day-to-day basis. And after reading all these 10 books, I have spotted some common tips in how to create this happiness, and I want to separate them into two parts. And the first one is actions, so the practical physical actions that you can take, and the second one is mindset shifts. Move more, getting enough good quality sleep, and eat healthy. Those are the three basic things that we all need to do in order to have a good, balanced, healthy life. And unsurprisingly, the majority of these books recommend doing these in order to improve our happiness. And I know this sounds super boring, but I can actually personally attest to these myself. When I started my health journey last year, I really started to implement all these things initially just for the physical health perspective, but surprisingly these things also made me feel better, less stress, less anxiety, and generally happier. Although I have purchased physical copies of some of these books, I also use short form to get key ideas for the rest. Short form makes it so easy for you to learn key ideas that you always want to explore, and I want to thank them for sponsoring this video today. today. For any subjects that I am interested in, there are so many books out there, and sometimes it can get very overwhelming. Short form offers in-depth and high-quality summaries of non-fiction books, helping me to decide whether that particular book is worth my time or money. I use short form to make this video. Besides buying Flow, this classic work on how to achieve happiness, the 4 agreements, and the how of happiness, I was able to extract more tips covered in this video using book summaries from short form. If you're interested in self-improvement, philosophy, entrepreneurship, or lifestyle, short form has got you covered. Go to shortform/poppy. This will give you access to thousands of book guides for the price of 1 book per month. So don't miss out. Having a sense of community or a sense of belonging will also help increasing your happiness. In the book, The Courage to Be Happy, the authors mention that humans are social by nature and interpersonal relationships are a fundamental part of good life. The higher or the better quality of these relationships, the better you feel and the more satisfaction you get from life. So it is important for us to, if we want to be happy, to focus on building good relationships with people around us. And speaking of the sense of community, happiness also comes from the feeling that we are being useful or helpful. So therefore, charity, giving back to the society, helping the people that we love makes us feel happy, and it doesn't have to be from a financial perspective. And I think this is a reason why a lot of people say parenthood is so fulfilling and makes them so happy, because parenthood gives us that sense of community, a sense of giving, a sense of being useful to someone. People who perform acts of kindness are normally happier than people who don't. The book Courage to Be Happy also mentions something along the line of being independent, which I think links to incremental improvements. Every single one of us has a natural drive to overcome our own helplessness by self-improvement. Children normally just insist on doing things on their own as soon as possible, and therefore trying to stay in control of your own lives through setting manageable goals, achieving incremental achievements will build our confidence, motivation, and our level of happiness. Almost all of these books also mention creating a positive environment around you. Our surroundings really have a huge impact on how we feel. We normally just feel better and a little bit happier if we live in an uncluttered space. We normally can see things clearly, making better decisions, and makes us happier if our mind is clear and not cluttered. So it's really important to fill your space or your surrounding with things that make you happy, whether that be pictures of your loved ones. And for me, I also love motivational quotes. And this positive environment also includes people. You will notice that if you spend time with toxic people, they pretty much will bring you down. If you spend time with people that don't respect you, then you constantly get upset. And with that, it makes it so much more difficult for you to feel happy. The most common tip that all of these books cover is having a positive mindset, which I can appreciate that this is not something that is easy to follow. But there are a few things that we can do. In the book, The Happiness Advantage, one of the ways to cultivate positive mindset is to look at positive things, even though from the things that we don't like. Let's say you try oyster for the first time. Instead of saying these have the worst textures and tastes, instead you can say it was fun to try something new. And I think it also goes without saying that it is also important to be positive about yourself. You know, the language that you speak to yourself is so crucial. I have continuously worked on the language that I speak to myself. Instead of being negative about myself, I've tried to be positive about myself, and it has actually helped me being a happier person, a more positive person. Another thing that we can do to build up this positive mindset is to build up positive anticipation. You know, if you're planning to do something exciting, going to a big event, purposely get excited about it, because sometimes your brain doesn't know the difference between the actual events or the anticipation of the events. When you get excited about what you're anticipating to happen, your brain can actually experience similar pleasure. Don't seek approval from others, nor should you care about what they think. The most unreliable thing is people. And when you're trying to please one person, that means you're not pleasing another, nor you are pleasing yourself, because all of us want different things, expect different things from other people, has different point of view. And therefore that creates internal conflict to yourself, because practically you can't please everyone. When you try to seek external validation or get approval from others, that means you judge yourself negatively if you receive negative reaction on certain things that you do, and hence that will make you feel unhappy. And you judge yourself positively if there's something that you do that receive positive reaction from other people, and then after that you feel happy. And therefore accepting yourself, your goals, your needs for who you are and what generally makes you happy will free you from other people's validation. And on the point about other people, these books also say don't take things personally. When someone gives you negative input, most of the time it's more about that person than yourself. Most of the time nothing that people say about you is actually about you. Stop living just for the weekend. In the book The Happiness Equation, the author suggests that Western society often only values work for its financial return so that money can support our free time, which then creates two main problems. And the one is that happiness can only come from having a free time, and secondly, work is just the mean to an end. And if you don't know already, we spend a third of our lives working. Hence why when we're not happy with our work, normally it makes us unhappy in general. In order to increase our happiness, it's important to focus on finding the work that satisfies us, the work that aligns with our interests, our passions. I think many of us find an approach such as Ikigai helps, but personally for me, it's kind of a trial and error. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that this is exactly something that I am actively working on. So if you're new here and want to see how things are going and want to follow my journey, then do subscribe to this channel. You also need to understand that there are always going to be adversity and challenges in life. Dalai Lama says in his book The Art of Happiness that suffering is an inescapable part of life. But if the word suffering seems really sad and severe, I originally came from a Buddhist background and I replaced the word suffering with challenges and adversity. And the acceptance that there are always going to be challenges, adversity, is the first step to conquer them. The acceptance will build this inner resilience so that you resolve life challenges without compromising on your happiness. And by understanding that challenges will always be there, you will start to understand that actually a lot of chaos that we are going through in life are created within ourselves. Life is not an emergency. If you're someone who's always reactive and always think the worst of the situation and feel like there's always a lot of chaos and everything is an emergency, try to think about the problem that you're currently facing in the future context. Oftentimes when we do that, we'll realize that the problem that we're facing is actually not urgent, not an emergency, and quite frankly immaterial. Although following all these tips will help you raising level of your happiness, but do know that this is not a simple task. Our minds are actually evolved for survival and not happiness. The book The Happiness Trap covers all these in details, which I really find interesting. So if you want to read the summary about it, then head to short form with the link in the description. I hope you found this video interesting, thought-provoking, and if you have tried any of these tips and if they've helped you with your well-being, then please do share in the comments. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.